RJ wants to ask, if evolution is real, why haven't spiders developed wings? So let's bring them on. RJ, you were on the Atheist Experience. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
So I got to ask, the question you asked here, is this is that the funny way to say it, or is that your actual question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a serious question because, I mean, if you believe in evolution, you believe that wings evolved, correct? Wings evolved on insects, and a lot of different insects, relatively easy from what some of the evolutionists claim. But it hasn't happened to spiders, and there's quadrillions of spiders around the world, and there's there's a lot of reasons why why developing wings would be very beneficial to spiders, right?
Sure. So a couple of questions here. Do you consider yourself to be a hard worker?
Yeah.
What do you do for what work do you do? What job do you do?
Well, right now I'm not working, but I was a truck driver. I've been in a lot of different things.
Okay, so professionally speaking, your skills are in truck driving. Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, right now I was only like maybe a year. I was in the military for about 12 years.
I'm just saying, like, what would you say is your professional expertise? If you had something to put on a resume right now.
A lot of things. I was tech support. I don't,
truck driver. You know how to drive a truck. Let's just
go with
start
that.
there.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Sorry.
So
sorry,
my
I
question
cannot
to you
listen
then,
to this
like
anymore.
12 years.
Truck driving. Okay.
Truck driving. Yeah. So we'll just say the question is, if you're such a hard worker, then why aren't you doing glass blowing? And why haven't you taken up heart surgery? Because we need more glass to run on your truck. Your windshield's made of glass. You need glass blowing for a lot of things, and we need more heart surgeons. So why aren't you doing those things if you're a hard worker?
Well, I mean, truck driving pays really well. I mean, if you own your own truck,
because it doesn't fit your life, right?
Like 300,000 a year.
It doesn't fit your life. It doesn't fit your life. It's not what you're good at. It's not what you want to do, and so you don't do it, right?
I mean, I guess you can make that argument.
Yeah. The same reason that you are not a coal miner, the same reason you're not an airline pilot, the same reason you're not a fireman, the same reason you're not an astronaut. It doesn't fit your life. It's not what you want to do. It's not where you're happy. So you don't do those things. You do the other stuff you do, right?
Okay.
So when we talk about biology, when we talk about evolution, we can look at an individual niche for an organism kind of the same way. And this runs the risk of having people believe that individuals evolve, which doesn't make any sense. But just for the analogy, please understand this is an analogy, is that you've got spiders and you've got flies and you've got birds and you've got worms and you've got coral and you've got octopi and you've got all these different things. The reason why there isn't so much crossover between this, whatever, pick your favorite characteristic that they have, is because it doesn't fit their niche. It doesn't fit the way that they live. It just so happens that spiders actually do have some really freaking terrifyingly cool ways to travel through the air, but that's neither here nor there. The reason why I haven't sprouted wings and learned to fly, the reason why humans don't do it, is because our niche doesn't call for it. There isn't selection pressure to force us to evolve in that direction. So we don't, and we haven't. And it's the exact same thing with spiders or coral or flatworms or fish or pick your favorite any other thing. Wings evolved independently, separate times in insects and in birds and in reptiles and in mammals. It evolved completely independently, separate times, because the selection pressure on these different types of creatures called for that. But it hasn't happened to spiders because they don't need that to happen, because they have good ways of air travel without it. And otherwise, the ones that don't travel through the air, through weird electrical things that they do, don't need to. So there's really just no reason for them to have wings. And so they haven't evolved them. And that's the long and short of it. The same reason that you're not a heart surgeon.
You
don't need to be.
That even if you're looking at the terrain that they're in, really, really high terrain that they have to cross, you wouldn't think that would help them out at all with catching prey.
There are some spiders. There are a lot of spider species that can use electrical currents in the air and literally propel themselves on a bit of web and pretty much fly through the air for like miles, for a long way. So they have a different way of doing it in those situations, and it's just fine.
Okay. Well, I'm not really convinced, but I'll go ahead and move on to the next question.
Well, hold on, because I saw Armin had something that he wanted to throw out there.
Okay.
Armin, I can't hear you, bud.
Sorry about that. Can you? Okay, so I want to try to do a cost-benefit analysis with you. Like, when it comes to a spider, like if it had wings, why would that be a positive thing? This is an obvious answer. Just tell me quickly.
Sorry, why would that be a positive thing?
Yeah, just tell me. Like, that's positive because
to catch prey and to evade predators,
run away. Yes, exactly. So those would be the benefits. Can you think of any costs?
Costs where
let's say you have wings. Spiders have wings. What would be the cost?
Are you saying the size? Like the weight of it would be.
So it will have extra. It will have extra weight, and you will have extra weight. Okay, the physical structure might not be optimal. It might be in the way. Right? It also will require more energy and resource to maintain it. Right? You would have to eat more. Right? Because you have to pay a cost for it as well. Right? Everything that is added to your body, you have to maintain a bigger diet. More calories, more protein, more whatever to maintain it as well. So it's not having wings is not just purely benefits. There's a cost and benefit. And given the limited resources, right, it's not a question about what would be a good thing. Given the limited resources every animal has when it comes to the ability to capture resources, nutrition, protein, calories, the question is what it would be the best thing to have, not what would be a good thing to have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that, but
okay.
There's a lot of insects that can fly that are large, like moths and wasps and bees and stuff like that. But I see where you're going with that. Yeah.
And lots of them share a common ancestor that was also able to fly, and so they just stayed in that niche. They kept that. It costs what Armin's explaining here is something they call the expensive tissue hypothesis. Basically, it takes energy to grow a new kind of tissue. It takes time to develop this new kind of tissue. It takes a lot of generations, a lot of mutations, a lot of energy to change the body in such a way. So it doesn't make any sense to just say what you're describing here gives some sort of intentionality to evolution, and it doesn't have that. There isn't a time when a spider is going to oh man, that's way over there. I wish I could fly there. Guess I better evolve, right? You know what I mean? That doesn't really work that way. There has to be steady selection pressure for a certain thing to happen. And like I said, wings have evolved several times, as eyes have evolved several times, as the ability to breathe air has evolved several times. There's lots of times where you can see something evolving independently over and over. But in every one of those cases, because the same kind of selection pressure is being applied to these different species, and they're finding their way into a new niche that works for them. So for spiders to evolve wings and flip off into the sky, they would have to be sacrificing the niche that they're already really well suited for. You talk about catching prey. Lots of spiders are ambush predators. They're going to hang out with a web and they're going to wait for something to fly into it. Trapdoor spiders, they bury themselves underground. Tarantulas aren't going to be having an easy time flying around. They're very terrestrial things. Even like arboreal tarantula. Do you know what I mean? It's just there's so many things there where they're already so well adapted to where they are. They don't need to change. And so why would they?
Yeah, but over such a long period of time, like you guys claim, some of these animals have been around for millions and millions and millions of years, with quadrillions of them being born with so many mutations. I disagree. Yeah. I think you would have a lot of speciation at that point in time.
We do have a lot of speciation. We don't see new limbs and new appendages just popping up de novo just because. that isn't how it works.
Can I ask a question real fast? Just a layperson, not a scientist. May I ask a question, RJ?
Yeah.
Do you believe then, if the spider was not evolved, do you believe the spider was created by a creator?
Yes.
Is that creator like the Christian God, or how would does that creator have a name?
Yeah.
Okay, you're a Christian.
Yeah, I'm Christian.
Okay, all right. So, do you feel like it's reasonable that a benevolent God would create a creature that would sustain itself by shoving its fangs into another living animal or insect, liquefying its insides, and then sucking out the insides to sustain itself as the prey animal or insect dies horribly? Does that sound like good design to you?
Well, insects don't have nerve endings, and they don't.
Yes, they do.
Their brains.
Beg to differ.
The way we can process it. No.
Okay.
Insects don't
all right. Hang on.
You can ask Forrest.
So let's say one of these predator spiders, like the African, they call it a bird-eating tarantula, but whatever. Let's say it's not an insect. There are animals, not insects, with nerve endings, and the designer's plan is to have the spider plunge its fangs into the flesh of a prey animal, liquefy its insides, and suck the insides out, killing the prey animal. Does that sound like benevolent, wise design to you?
The curse of Adam. The curse of Adam. So the death came through Adam.
The act of rebellious fruit munching by two garden nudists are the reason that spiders have to plunge fangs into other creatures to survive. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Death entered the world through Adam. There was no death prior to Adam, is what the Bible claims.
So an act of rebellious fruit munching by two cosmically conjured garden nudists are the reason. That's the reason that spiders have to suck liquefied internal organs out of other creatures to survive. I understand that.
That is. That's correct. That's what it says.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I have no further questions. I have no idea what else to do with it.
Okay.
It just sucks. Basically, so first of all, I'm gonna put a thing in here this is from the Entomological Society of Canada, a little thing about, do insects feel pain? There's also, I could dig for it, but I'll put that in the chat. There's also a lot of cool studies that came out a couple of years ago that shows memory and things in insects. They have a rudimentary nervous system sometimes, but to say that they just don't feel anything doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the whole thing, I think that, what Seth and I both are driving at, number one, what you're talking about isn't how evolution works. And the alternative is, it's messed up and stupid because of this ridiculous, corrupt moral system that doesn't make any sense. So no matter which way we slice what you're saying here, it just doesn't track with either morality or reality. And I don't see where the disconnect between us is.
I was putting that as a argument against evolution. I'm not sure where you're going with it, but that's the reason I came up with the argument. But
gentlemen,
you made your
so RJ, what you're saying then is,
I guess I was gonna move on to this other.
Everything that works optimally in nature that does not cause pain or distress, right? That is not a destructive force. That will then be God's pure design. But everything that works suboptimally or does cause pain and distress or waste or whatever, that then is going to be the product of the fall of Adam and Eve in the garden and the infecting of humankind with sin throughout the generations. Am I to understand that correctly? So the good things God, bad things fall of man. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it says in the Bible.
So is there any way to falsify that in your mind? If anyone points to something that has gone awry in this design, God's master plan, all you have to do is say, well, that's not God's optimized master plan. And you are ostensibly off the hook. You see the problem we have with that, right?
Well, I mean, if you don't believe in God, yeah, I mean, I would see the problem. But I mean,
If your great grandfather got a
parking.
parking ticket, do you feel like that would be a great reason for spiders to stick their fangs into the flesh of prey creatures, liquefy their organs, and suck them out?
If my grandfather got a ticket,
Somebody down the family tree in your ancestral line did something that was kind of a, forgive the play on words, a garden variety transgression. Not rape, not murder, not torture. They did something like eat a fruit, jaywalk, whatever. Do you feel like it would make sense then to say, well, now other animals that are not the human animal must now go and horribly prey on each other with pain and screaming and blood and death? Do you feel like that would make sense to you?
yeah, I mean, well, I'm not God, so I would say that, that's up to God.
But would you design it that way? I'm curious. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. If it's if everything is perfect, everything around you is perfect, and there's one rule that you just got one rule. That's all you have is one rule to follow, and you break that one rule, despite knowing that death is going to enter into the world, which is what they did. Then yes, that makes sense.
Can't let this go.
I mean,
I'm
just
sorry,
imagine
guys.
you have
I'm sorry. I know we're on the clock.
But there's
No,
just one little
please.
tiny
You're,
bit.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So what you have is a father figure who creates imperfect children. He puts temptation directly in their path, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, directly in their path, which is the equivalent in this scenario of tossing a live hand grenade into a nursery. He then gives his arch nemesis direct access to those imperfect and vulnerable children, and he does and says nothing as they are tempted. They do something as innocuous as eating a piece of fruit, and because of that, there are billions in hell, and spiders sink their fangs into the flesh of prey animals, liquefying the organs and sucking them out. Is that what I'm supposed to buy?
The snake, they're not sure if that's actually thing. There's disputes on
I don't
that.
care. I don't care.
But
I don't
that is pretty
care
much-
if it's Truman Capote. I don't give a shit who it is. It was a
But-
tempter,
but
an
like I
agent
said,
of
just
Lucifer.
imagine you're given everything. You have everything on the planet that you need, and there's just one rule, and you're like, no, I'm gonna break that one rule, even though I got everything I want.
You're an imperfect
everything that I
creature.
could possibly
Let's
want,
say
and
you're
I'm
tempted and make a
perfectly happy, I'm gonna
mistake.
break that one.
You are tempted and you made a mistake. And you aren't just punished in the extreme, but billions of people who had no choice, but who had no say in their own being born are also punished. And all of the animal and insect kingdom, all life is also punished as well. You don't see why I might have a problem as seeing that as reasonable, especially from a perfect God who could do better. He could do whatever he wanted. Isn't that fair?
Just because you don't think it's reasonable doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just
Can
'cause
I
it's
also ask a
something
question?
that you don't
I'm
personally
done.
agree
No,
with.
I'm sorry. And I've monopolized it long enough. Thank you for
No,
your indulgence.
No,
You've been very kind. Thank
I
you.
loved every second of it, and I hope you
Okay.
keep going. I just had a separate question that I thought was functional and could add to this. RJ, does God know everything?
Yes.
Has that always been the case? Has God always known everything that has happened, will happen, all things forever? God is all knowing completely?
Yes.
So then he knew that we were going to rebel in the garden. He knew that we were going to eat the fruit and that he was going to have to punish us and all these things were going to happen. So you have a child. Do you have any children?
No, I do not. No.
Okay. Have you ever worked with children?
No.
Have you ever been a
He's
child
somebody's
before?
child. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. So like when you're a baby, when you're a little kid, and you have no idea how big the world really is and what consequences are. If a little infant crawls across a keyboard and hits the button that launches a nuclear missile, do we need to punish that baby for the devastation that it's wrought? Or did it just be a baby? Was it just being a baby and it did something accidentally because it had no idea what it was? What do you think is the moral solution here? If a baby does something wrong and has no idea.
You're right. I mean, I want to punish the baby.
And now especially, yeah, you wouldn't, because that would be a stupid, monstrous thing to do, right? So here's God, and God puts humans in this garden. Humans have no understanding of anything in the entire world. They literally don't know what evil is because they haven't eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil yet. They don't know what wrong is. And God takes the thing that they're not supposed to do. He could have put the tree in another goddamn garden, but instead he puts it right in front of them and then allows someone to tempt them and knows the whole time, because he designed it this way and is all-knowing, I'm going to do this, they're going to eat the fruit, and then they're going to be sinful, and I'm going to punish them. And then that happens, and he goes, how could you do this to me? I must now punish you. Like, do you not understand how that's a completely brainless, not only immoral, but just stupid thing to do? If I get in my car and the fuel gauge says I have 10 miles left and then I try to drive 100 miles, I can't be pissed off when my car runs out of gas. I knew that was going to happen. And here we have God who takes people, makes them not knowing what evil is, knows that they are going to do something evil, gives them the ability to do the evil thing, makes sure they have the temptation to do the evil thing, and then when they do the evil thing that he knew they were going to do, not only punishes them, but punishes every living thing from then on throughout all history. That's insane, that's stupid, and that's monstrous. Tell me how I'm wrong, RJ.
You read the Old Testament, it's amazing to see how often Yahweh is surprised.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, are you going to let me answer? Or are you...
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, we're kind of just laughing at it now, but by all means, answer.
Okay, so just because a being is all-knowing, that doesn't mean that people don't have a choice. So yeah, God.
Oh my God.
Oh, the choice.
Make the wrong choice. There's also a parallel.
So RJ, if I videotape a football game, those people had the choice, but I still know how it's going to end because I have it on videotape. So if I then watch the videotape and I say, okay, I don't know football teams. Here's the Bulls versus the Octopuses, and I know the Bulls are going to win, but if the Octopuses lose, I'm going to punish them. They have the choice. They played the game. They had the choice, but I already knew the outcome. Does that make this situation any more fatuous, or I should say any less?
Insane.
No, because you're not controlling you're not overseeing the football field. You're just watching a video of a football field.
No, you're right. Actually, that does make it infinitely worse, RJ. You're absolutely right. God also controls everything and could change this easily at any time, but chooses not to. The point of all of this, what Seth and I have been talking about, is that based on what you're saying, God intentionally makes some people in order to send them to hell. The purpose of it is for people to go to hell and be tortured forever. The purpose of it is for life to be bloody and brutal and violent and short. The purpose of it is the cruelty. How does that not sit weirdly with you?
That he doesn't exist. That doesn't prove that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you can.
We'll get there later. We'll get there later. Sure, we'll grant that he exists. If he exists, he's a monster.
That does not prove he doesn't exist.
That's not what Forrest is saying. That's how Forrest is not even telling you that he doesn't exist. Forrest is telling you how monstrous this God of you is if it existed.
If your God is real, he's evil.
You're confusing the term of all-knowing, because all-knowing could mean the person still has a choice. He could go the other way and say, "Hey, no, I'm not going to eat the
That's not what you said.
Or opposite
What you said.
evil, good
Nope, that's not what you said, RJ. What you said when I asked for clarification, I said, does God know everything that has happened, will happen forever? He knows every possible thing. And you said yes. So he already knows the future. Whatever free will you have, he knows what choice you're going to make. And he's still going to punish you for it, even though he has the ability to change the circumstances and show you something better. You are a child. You don't know what you're doing. And he knows, and he's going to punish you for the things that you don't understand and you don't have control over because he designed it in a way to make sure you didn't. He orchestrated the situation you're born into and then punished you for it. He made you broken and sick and commanded you to be fixed and well. And if you don't do it, he's going to torture you forever. What kind of God does that?
You see, you're saying he doesn't exist because the morality, because you disagree.
No, I'm not.
He's not saying that. Who are you listening to? Are you listening to Forrest? Are you watching a different show? Forrest is not even making
exactly what you're saying. You're saying I don't agree with him.
He's not saying. He's not even making an argument for why God doesn't exist or not. It's not even the topic. That's not even the topic. I don't know what you're listening to.
You're trying to say to me that this is an immoral God, right? Is that
yes?
What are you trying to say? Are you
yes.
Trying to say he's an immoral God? Okay.
Let's say your God exists, Forrest. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't believe your God is real. I'm saying if he is real, assuming he is real, he is evil. So let's take it at face value and say your God is real. He's evil.
So since he didn't do what you wanted him to do, then he can't be real because he doesn't agree with what you would.
That's not what
He didn't do what any moral person would do. It's not about Forrest. It's about any person that understands what good. Like, would you do that? Forget Forrest. Would you do that?
In the atheistic universe, morals don't exist, right?
Correct? That's not true.
We're not even talking. He's not remotely interested in answering the question.
Yeah, RJ. So both Seth and I have been giving you our breakdown of why we disagree with what this God has done. None of us have argued whether or not it exists, and none of us have talked about atheistic morality or any of that. And rather than just directly addressing what we're saying, you're jumping from point to point to point to point to try to find something else to argue about. We're about to end the call. We're not letting you leave this. If your God is real, then what he's doing is wrong. It's immoral and it's evil. If he's real, he's a monster. Address that or we can move on.
I disagree with you. That's not true. If I have a kid and I say, hey, you don't stick your hand in the oven, and he does it anyway, am I the one that's wrong or is he the one that's wrong?
Oh God!
If you have a kid,
hang on, Forrest. Hang on. Hold on. I can't help myself. Hang on.
Yeah, please. No, you're going to say the same thing I'm about to.
RJ, do you believe in hell of the New Testament? Depart from me, you who are cursed, into a lake of everlasting fire. Is there hellfire?
In the book of Revelation, it talks about hell. Yep.
Okay. Do you believe in hellfire?
Yeah.
Okay. If you had a child, or brother, sister, parent, friend, whatever, who had done something heinous, who had made a mistake. And I'm not talking about an innocuous thing, eating the fruit, the parking ticket, jaywalking. But what if they'd done something really bad? Is there any scenario where you would go up to them, douse them in gasoline, and set them on fire?
No, because I'm not God.
Okay. You would not do it because you feel like it would be the wrong thing to do. It would cause immense suffering. You're not a monster. You would never torture someone, murder them in that torturous way. You yourself, you're grieved by the idea. You would never do it. Is that fair? You're a moral person. You would never set another human being on fire to die in that way, correct?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All I'm asking you to do is to give yourself permission to apply that type of moral standard beyond yourself. If you heard that Allah had done it in the Quran, you'd be grieved. If you've heard one of the Hindu gods or one of the ancient gods of the Greek gods had done it, you'd be grieved, or you'd sort of brush it off. Ask yourself if Yahweh deserves the same standard. And if you're not willing to say, well, if it's immoral in this context, why would it not be immoral in that? Ask yourself why. I think this is something I would like you to pursue in your own life. Why would it be horrifying and tremendously immoral in this context, but appropriate and just and even holy in another context? Is that fair? Just chew on that tonight.
Right. That's correct. But that's why there's a salvation to get away from that. That's why.
Look, if the person threatening me with fire wants to save me, that's not salvation. That's extortion.
You can perceive it.
Love me or I'll burn you.
That's on you.
That's not salvation. That's extortion.
That the definition of extortion doesn't fit that. But if you
who made hell?
Make that claim,
who made hell, RJ? Who created, designed, and implemented hell?
He created it for the fallen angels originally, but yeah.
Okay, so if it's for the fallen angels, then I would not ever end up there because it's for the fallen angels.
But then it also is for the people who turn against him.
Okay, so then it is for me and not just the fallen angels. By the way, it's also okay to burn fallen angels, but now I'm involved. Okay. So the person, or the deity rather, who created the scenario with hellfire is saying, love me, do these things, accept me under these conditions, or I will throw you into hellfire. That's not salvation, RJ. That's extortion.
No, the word extortion means you're trying to get, if you look it up in the legal term, it doesn't mean that, but I see where you're going with that. But
just chew on it tonight. Just think about it. All right. Get away from me, get away from all of us, and think about it.
I understand.
Okay? Give yourself permission. A lot of times we think, well, he's God, he can do whatever he wants. We're just insects under his boot. We have no right to ask these questions or to demand a moral standard. You know, we are mortal, he is immortal. Who can know the mind of God? And we are told that we're not qualified to ask moral questions or have moral expectations of a divine deity, whatever. But I want to just have you chew on that and ask, why shouldn't I give myself permission to hold any and all to some kind of a moral standard? And I think that's fair. Okay.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
All right. I appreciate
I was going to talk about my second portion of it, but it looks like we used up a lot of time.
We've had you for a half hour, buddy. I think we better call it.
Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll call in a later time, I guess. All right, thanks.
Sorry,
Take care, RJ.
I don't mean to I'm supposed to be the squirt gun. You guys are the machine guns, but this is something that just gets under my skin. It's whenever I hear people say, well, it's really our own fault. And whatever he does is moral because we're ants in the ant farm and we're here for his amusement at his pleasure anyway. And free will, he didn't say free will, but there was a free will shade, and it just sets me off. So apologies for jumping in there so much, guys.
I appreciate it because honestly, otherwise it would have just been me explaining evolution the whole time. Because that was super prepared to break down like neo-Darwinian evolution, but honestly, I think it was much more important to get to where we got to.
Well, I mean, Armin could have done it just as good a job as me. I just feel like I'm sitting on the edge of my chair going, okay, and I'm leading from one point to the other. Okay, but no, I appreciate that.
Before we move on, I just want to make 2 points. First of all, the audacity to tell 3 atheists who are saying that they don't think it's okay to torture people for doing things that was not their choice, for things happening that was not their decision. Torturing them is not okay. And you, as a Christian, saying that it's okay, and then at the same time saying atheists don't have morality. I mean, did
he say that? I think
call that morality,
didn't he?
Yeah, he did say that. I mean,
Armin has no morality. We knew that, but I mean, the rest of us. are we're okay. We're centered. I'm just saying.
I mean, if you think torturing people for eternity for things that they had no say in, if that's morality, okay, yeah, I don't have morality. I want to call what we have something else. You keep that morality for yourself.
You know, just like a spider with wings. Once you get him going, you can't stop him. He's unstoppable.
I will say, Seth, you were a lot more charitable than I would have been, because there was one part of that you said, would you, if someone committed some atrocity, would you set them on fire with gasoline? And his answer was, no, I'm not God. And that hit me. So you were kind enough and charitable enough and handsome enough to say, actually, I think you wouldn't do it because you think it's morally repugnant and you would be grieved by that thought, right? And he was like, oh, well, yeah. I wanted to lay into him on that. Just like, how could you possibly say, no, it's okay because God did it?
There's so much of that. Whatever God decides to do, we're his creation, so he gets to do it. There is no immorality in any behavior, any thought, any consequence. If God does it, it's by default. It is de facto moral. And this sort of, I think, surrender of ethical thinking, this surrender of values, this desire to really be a slave, to say, well, if he tortures me, if my child dies in a car accident, or if my loved one gets cancer, or if some horrible if I die in a house fire tomorrow, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Whatever he does, it is righteous and moral. It's a type of slavery that grieves me, and I'm desperate to see people liberated from that kind of thinking.
Yeah, no, I think we can all agree on that. I think that's why we're all here, because it really is just it's soul crushing to see somebody defend that and to embrace that in their own lives, and to assume that if something bad happens, they must be the fault of it. It's because this fallen world, the sin, and all these things. It's something we've talked about on the show a few times. He's smarter than me. I'm so stupid. He's stronger than me. I'm weak. I'm this little insignificant thing. He's so great. He punishes me because I deserve it. He's just challenging me and testing me. He's putting me through these trials to make me better. He loves me. That's why he hurts me so much. He only causes pain and suffering because I deserve it, because we deserve it. Everything I just said is talking about an abusive boyfriend. And yet, when you slap a Bronze Age sex manual around it, you call it a religion. And that, to me, it really just blows my freaking mind to say that I have to sit here and walk people through basic human decency and say, yes, you can apply that same standard to the God that you believe in, like you were just trying to do with RJ. You would never do these evil things. Why would you be cool with it when God does it?
I wanted to ask RJ if it would be moral if Yahweh had us drink an eternity of feces, holy water, but I didn't get around to that part.
Right?
I wanted, that was in my queue, but I didn't get a chance to get there.
I hope RJ calls back, because I want to know, is there anything that God could do that would be bad? You know what I mean? I want to know what his thoughts are.
First, it's interesting because you're talking about basic human decency, because unlike what religious people claim that religion gives you morality, it seems like it's one of the only tools out there that could take you so far away from basic human decency. It seems like without it, a lot of people would not come up with these crazy conclusions. It's really hard to come up with these crazy conclusions unless you're religious. Seems like it's actually the only tool that can get you this far away from actual morality.
That's why we're here, y'all, because if somebody can make you believe absurdities, they can make you commit atrocities. And so we're here to talk about. We get so many comments why do you care so much what people believe? And there's a clip that I think was on TikTok of last time you and I were on the show together, Armin, and somebody called in and said, why do you care what people believe? And I was starting to talk and you just scream in the microphone, because your religion's affecting our lives. It's yeah, dude, you get it.